Hi everyone, and welcome to Wednesday's reading lesson. As you can see, and as you already know, Wednesdays is all about VIPERS questions. So our role for today is to generate VIPERS questions based on a text, and it's going to be looking at the text we've been looking at all week this week in reading. So just a little recap what VIPERS means. The V stands for vocab. So we probably will be looking at some of the words from yesterday's vocab session. Yeah, I stands for inference, so that's where we're looking at clues in the text. It might not say something directly, but we've got to read around what it does say in the text. P stands for predicted, so we're going to be having a really good educated guess. E stands for explain, so we need to look at something in the text and explain it using because and use evidence from the text. R stands for retrieval, which is the find and copy questions, and S stands for summarising, which is where we're going to sum it all up, and this quite often is a tick box. So let's have a look at this in a little bit more detail just to remind you. I've also come up with some examples of questions here which could be asked. Okay, so for the vocab question, you might put something like, find and copy a word or phrase that is closest in meaning to, and I might choose one of the words from yesterday. So my question might be, find and copy a word which is closest in meaning to the back of the ship. And using the word from yesterday, I know the word will be stern. Okay, the next one, in an inference question. So again, this is where we're going to be using clues. So I might ask a question something like, how can you tell that Anna was calm when she heard the news that the Titanic had struck an iceberg? And it says use the text in your answer. So my answer would be something like, I know that Anna was calm when she heard that the Titanic had struck an iceberg, because in the text it says Anna wasn't scared, but others fainted. So it's not directly said in the text anywhere that she's calm, but the fact that it's saying that she wasn't scared and other people fainted, that's giving me the impression that she was calm. Obviously, she probably wasn't later on, but that initial instance she was. The next question then, so a predict question, so we want the reader to really have a good educated guess. So you might have a question something like, what do you think happened to Minnie and her children? Use evidence from the text to explain your answer. So again, I'd go back to the text, I would read the text, and my answer for this might be something like, well, unfortunately, I think Minnie and her children went down with a ship, because in the text, it says that she sat in her room for an hour after she heard the news to let her boys sleep. And then a little bit later in the text, it says something about the crew on board gated up the entryways and things to get onto the lifeboat deck. So I'm thinking, well, she sat there for an hour waiting because she wasn't sure what to do. She let her boys sleep, doesn't mention anything about her getting up onto the boat deck, and then the crewmen, they actually locked the gates. So I'm thinking that she probably didn't get to a lifeboat, so I'm thinking that she might have actually gone down with the ship. Okay, the next one then, explain. So I put an example here. Explain why third class tickets were the cheapest. Use evidence from the text to help you. And your answer for this could be, well, the third class tickets were the cheapest because they were the steerage tickets, and these were at the back of the ship where all the steering equipment was. And also somewhere, I think in the text, it says there was only two actual baths for all the third class passengers. So they were the cheapest because they didn't have the same standard of accommodation. It was in the worst part of the ship where all the steering equipment was, something like that. Your retrieval question, again, I think these are the easiest because they are basically find and copy. So you might have something like, how old was Anna? And I think in the text it says she was 18. You could have, where was Anna when she heard the news the Titanic had struck? And again, in the text it says she was in bed. And then your final one, for summarise, you might have one of something like this. Which of these best summarises what this text is about? And quite often they are tick boxes. So it could be the Titanic's different cabins, the nourishing food served, and tales of third-class passengers. Now you've got to be careful on these types of questions because they will always put options which it could be. So for example, it does talk about cabins, that word is mentioned. It does talk about nourishing food, that is mentioned. So a lot of people will generally just put a tick in really quickly without reading them carefully. And obviously this one, it's really about the tales of two third-class passengers because we find out about Minnie and we find out about Anna. Okay, so they are my examples of VIPERS questions. This week, what we really want you to focus on is trying to do a question of each kind because quite a lot of people at the minute are sending us VIPERS work where we've got 6 different find and copy questions, or we've got 3 find and copy questions and then 3 retrieval questions. So let's really push ourselves today, year 6, and try and do a vocab question, an inference question, a predict, an explain, a retrieve, and a summarize. Try and do 1 or 2 for each. Don't just do 4 retrieval or 4 find and copy because that's not pushing yourself as much as you can. Okay, and the last thing for today as well is try and think of your own, because when we are getting working, we're seeing a lot of our questions. Okay, so you can use ours to help you and use ours to start you off, but try and think of your own questions, year 6. You've done this in September. Okay, so good luck and we can't wait to see your own VIPERS questions.